My name's Charlie Etheridge-Nunn, and I was born in a failed artist colony in the Isle of Wight. That's my origin, and now let's talk about origins in RPGs, as that's the RPG a day word of the day. So, I've encountered so many different kinds of players with different approaches to origins. I've had people that will give me 2 A4 sides of their background. That's way too much. I love that you're putting that enthusiasm in. That is way too much. And I've had people that have gone, yeah, I just want to create this character from this cartoon, which feels a bit like that's a too little, but fine. Like personally, I like people that have some idea of who their character is, what their motivations are, and then enough empty space to fill in as you go. And one of the games that has done an amazing job of handling character origins and backgrounds is called The Between by Jason Cordova. Yes, I'm going back to the Gauntlet well. This time, however, my main experience with The Between is in a spin-off game called Ghost of El Paso. Now, Ghost of El Paso is a game about a kind of haunted Wild West where every 6 years the dead rise, and you play for Vigilance Committee, a bunch of strange individuals, including a kind of unscrupulous tavern owner, marshal who comes from criminal backgrounds, and literal death, who is trapped in a human body. So yeah, some cool, interesting premises for character classes, and ones where it sounds like they'd be potentially a bit prescriptive with each of them, but actually, there's something kind of wonderful about them all. They are open enough that players can modify things that can create unique backgrounds and backstories. I've run between a couple times, I've played it once, and each time the characters have felt uniquely them despite having origins and backgrounds that are not necessarily locked in, but the same broad strokes. And the way this is done is with a mask system. There we go, just getting a playbook hit ready. So, the system allows you to bump up your rolls from failure to partial success to full success, and so on, by doing something called marking a mask of the past or a mask of the future. And what happens with those is the masks of the future do odd things. They show how you're being affected more and more by the strange, by the supernatural, and rather tauntingly, it does say if no boxes are marked, you can always retire to obscurity. And there you go, your character's gone. And I've seen players deliberate over that, not realizing that's a false premise. Like, that's saying you are going to do this, you are going to take these masks, and you will join us in the weird places. You are saying goodbye to dying in safety and obscurity. But the one we're covering today is the Mask of the Past, and these are filled in a linear fashion. And this is one of the two ways you can tell us about your character. Oh yeah, it gates away your background, your origin. So with the Mask of the Past, as an example, we have the Lost, which is the kind of drunken priest role. You constantly go between zealous faith and a complete drunken mess, and it mechanizes that backsliding and then going back and then backsliding again, that kind of thing. And in this case, the first time you need to put on a mask, you will be told, narrate a flashback to a time before you were part of the clergy when you were strong in your faith. So you could do a kind of zoomed out scene. I've had some people go a bit third person with it. I've had people go through an act scene or do a monologue. I've heard on actual plays people do kind of relatively scripted things, which is cool. Specifically, that was in the Silk versus RPG when someone was the worshipper of the Watcher in the Wings god about performance, so it kind of fit there. But yeah, with these Masks of the Past, they give you those prompts. The next one, for example, is narrate a flashback to the traumatic event that convinced you to pursue theological training. Narrate a flashback describing the last time you felt truly blessed. And each of these give you something new, which you might plan, you might have a look at and go, oh, I've got a rough idea here. Other times you might have no idea and kind of riff off of whatever's going on in the mystery. For us, the Marshall and the Kid playbooks were siblings, and it became increasingly clear that the Marshall's mum was actually the sheriff of El Paso before she passed, before he had to step up. And they actually had not quite crossovers, but they had scenes that they both played in their flashbacks, which was really cool. And scenes where you'd see part of it in one flashback, another part of it in another, showing their different relationships with each other and with their now late mother. So yeah, it was fascinating seeing that. Um, I know when I played an explorer, I had a lot figured out with that, with my past, because the explorer's playbook frames things slightly differently, as you're not looking through the past of that character. You're looking at the past of a character that was in a village that was colonized by your character. And this gets you closer and closer to eventually that character showing up and killing you. If it comes to it, that's exactly what's going to happen, and that's fascinating, that sort of thing. And I'd only marked a couple of masks, and already I knew my character had a son who was not cut out for hunting, for exploring, for any of these things. And the flashbacks in the Masks of the Past all refer to the boy. And this boy was a boy in the village who my character saw as a son, but ultimately would betray because he had to look after his complete fail son instead, and would always side with him over the kind of competent, enthusiastic kid that he treated as his own son. So yeah, it's a fascinating tool. I know there are many other games that have origin mechanics, backgrounds, those kind of things. What's your favourite? Let me know.